So this isn't my usual video. I, do a lot of surfing and camping and swimming on this channel. But unfortunately, last week I lost my job. I was one of 200,000 or so federal employees who were cut from the workforce for really no reason. So I was notified on Valentine's Day. It was a great Valentine's gift. I was verbally notified by my assistant director that I was one of the employees that was selected for termination, along with a bunch of other people. Ended up being 10% of our agency that was eventually cut. I was on the chopping block because I was a new employee to them. I have worked for the federal government for 4 years and I already did my probationary time at another agency. But when I came into my new agency, they did not process the paperwork correctly, and I didn't know until last week. They still listed me as probationary, and Doge, one of Elon Musk's teenage interns, came into my agency on Valentine's Day, took a look at, I guess, the list of probationary employees, and fired us. So I'm editing here and I realized I left out an important part about Doge. So when Doge came in to our agency on Valentine's Day, they supposedly put something into our servers, infected our servers, and this is very concerning because we dealt with cybersecurity for DHS, Department of Homeland Security. We protected critical infrastructure. This is also very concerning because one of the Doge interns allegedly has ties to Russian cybercriminals. I will add a short clip from a cybersecurity expert with more information about this.
At this point, you probably heard a lot about how Doge has caused a lot of potentially irreparable disruption. Wired 404 Media, Brian Krebs, and a bunch of other journalists have been doing a lot of great work about it. You should check them out. There are allegedly direct connections between some of the Doge staff and major cybercriminal organizations. One of them, Edward Korstein, was allegedly fired from a previous job for leaking sensitive data to a competitor. He worked with Eric Taylor, a cybercriminal from a group called UG Nazi, as well as Matthew Flannery from the more infamous LulzSec. He also was found to be a member of the Com. It's supposed to be like a decentralized cybercriminal hub. He's also allegedly been credibly linked to cybercriminal markets and DDoS for hire services that operate in the Russo sphere. These are the sorts of people that are being trusted to make decisions at the highest level right now. And they're handling your data.
So much for the party of national security that is currently cutting us. Clearly, nobody cares about national security anymore because they've also, at my previous agency, they also cut like 90% of the cybersecurity professionals. I'm not the only one in this boat. Obviously, like I said, there's 200,000 employees and counting that have lost their jobs just in the past couple weeks. Nurses, a lot of people on my channel follow a lot of hiking channels, and people have been posting on Instagram like, oh, trails are going to be closed, your favorite hiking trails, because the Forest Service, tons and tons of National Park Service employees and Forest Service workers were fired as well. Now, they usually work in the summer, like they're seasonal, and then they work for years to get a full-time position, which is what a lot of people who got fired, what they faced. Basically, they worked for years to get their job, just like I did, and then they were cut. So there's also, I'm not sure if some people have seen, but there was a lot of people, there were employees, engineers who worked on nuclear reactors that were also fired. And yeah, just all sorts of like necessary people. Not that, these other agencies weren't necessary, but it's surprising to me that they would cut people who are, because they said, public safety employees, national security employees, like they should be safe. And of course that was not the truth. I mean, I don't think any of these people should be cut. Yeah, I got notified on Valentine's Day, like I said, and then I was waiting on the email. They said you should receive an official email with your termination letter and everything in the next week. Don't know when that'll be. So I had to clean out my desk right there and then, and several coworkers helped me clean out everything and take it down to my car. And then I never received anything over the weekend, so I had to come in Monday, or actually Monday was a holiday, so Tuesday and Wednesday, very awkwardly. And then I got an email around, I don't know what time it was in the afternoon of Wednesday, and I of course replied with a rebuttal saying, hey, I'm not supposed to be on probation. They did claim it was for performance, which is what they're claiming for all probationary employees that they fired when, you know, most everyone, like I, for example, wasn't even at my agency long enough to get a performance evaluation. And my ones from my previous agency were good. There were a lot of people who were fired for performance across the government who had great evaluations. So don't believe what you're reading online or seeing on certain news networks that are saying like, oh, these were bad employees and stuff like that. That is not true. And actually, I do want to say there are people who are just absolute POSs that work in the government. Like every office has one, right? And it's the same way in the private sector. I used to work in the private sector before I was in the Army. And those people are not fired. They were not fired. There's people who committed misconduct and everything like that over the years. They're not gone. They're still there. I know, because some old offices I was in, I've reached out to my old coworkers. Yep, this person's still there. So the people that should have been terminated were not. By the way, if you're a fired Fed, I will list resources in the description of this video, kind of a checklist that I'm putting together of things you should do. I'm sure there's some out there already on the internet. I know Reddit is actually a great source for federal employees, Reddit Fed News. There's a lot of other posts on there, but there are some good resources. We've all got to stay together in this and fight together. Yeah, HR came back and said like, oh no, you were hired as a probationary employee, like a very boilerplate, like they know people are going to come back and sue them. So there are 2 class action lawsuits so far. I'll list them down below in the description. Like I said, I plan on hopping on one of those. I did contact both my senators and everything like that. I am appealing to the merit board, which has been purged by Trump, but you know, those are just the steps that we have to take. HR is trying to mess with my retirement. So I only served 4 years in the federal government plus 11 years in the military. Because I served for like 7 years active duty, 4 years as a reservist in the Army, I'm allowed to take those 7 years and apply it to my federal service time. So that way I can retire 7 years early. Not anymore. So when I was at my previous agency, I paid $6,000 into that, and I have all the records for everything. HR is trying to say that they're keeping that money and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, the hell you are not. I've got to fight to cash out my leave because I was terminated and all these other 200,000 employees were terminated. They're trying to say that we're not entitled to severance. These firings are illegal. I do think people in the public should understand that working for the government is different than working in the private sector. They can't just terminate you. There's a process. It's very difficult to get these jobs, it's a process to get these jobs to begin with. It takes sometimes 6 months to a year to get onboarded. A lot of times you have to get a security clearance, which can take up to a year. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this. So being that it's kind of difficult to get in, they do make it difficult to lose your job. So if you are a poor performer, they will give you like bad evals, and then there's a process. You do get put on a performance plan and everything like that. And then if you don't perform, you get canned. But it is pretty hard to get fired, unfortunately, for those who have committed misconduct. Like what happened last week to me, you don't just get a verbal notification on Friday and then you're out like 3 days later. That just doesn't happen. Nobody had any time to prepare. There are people who are, both spouses have lost their jobs. My husband very much may lose his job, and then we would lose the house within a few months. I mean, there was no warning. These jobs are very secure. Nobody expected to lose their jobs, and it's affecting most of our friends, some family members as well. I mean, these are very scary times. I think we're going to see an economic crisis in this country soon. There's a lot of veterans that are on disability for various ailments, like being exposed to black mold in the barracks where they lived for years in the military. That causes problems. A lot of people have sleep issues or damage to their back, knees, etc. So they collect, a certain amount of disability for that from the government, and they're talking about cutting that. And who is behind this? Of course, it's Elon Musk, Trump, and something called Project 2025, which most people have heard of, but there's a guy called Russell Vought, who's behind all of this. I thought this was the party of support our troops and pro-family. There was an email that came out last night. Yeah, it was an email from OPM. So first, Elon Musk, who's a private citizen and should have no dealings in our government whatsoever, but somehow he's in charge of all these firings. He directed that every employee, all 2.3 or 2.1 million now federal employees, should email him or his employees or something. I don't know how this is going to work. There's only 8 Doge interns, so don't know how they're going to handle all this traffic. And they want federal employees to respond to this email with 5 bullet points on what they did last week, what they accomplished, which every office I've ever worked in, you do that anyway. Like every Thursday or Friday, you send a report to your boss saying like, hey, this is what I worked on. This is what I produced. These are meetings or briefings I had, things like that, what I accomplished. It's a huge national security risk too, because you don't want to be saying like, there are a lot of offices that work with classified information and they're like, oh, don't send us any classified information, but it's still sensitive. Like people should not be responding to this email, but then they're being threatened to be fired and everything like that. There are some agencies who came out today who told their employees do not respond to this email. And even the FBI, Kash Patel, who is, very loyal to Trump, he said, we can evaluate the worth of our employees ourselves. So that's significant. I think the public is just beginning to wake up, or maybe some of them haven't woken up to what is happening in our country. It's very scary. I never try to be a doomsdayer myself, but this is bad. Like there is a private citizen and his little squad coming in and taking over our government. These people are not cleared. They're probably not doing anything safe. And so our adversaries could have access to that. Like Russia's winning. Russia's inside now. The news has started putting out this information. At first it was kind of a slow roll, and like our local news was reporting on it because this area is heavily, federal government, federal employees, 30% of which are veterans. And so it's affecting all sorts of people. And then the national news is kind of on it now, and it's kind of starting to roll out. But it's going to affect everyone soon. I mean, for example, when USAID was shut down, they buy grain from American farmers. My family is in ag. They're in the agricultural business. Like this affects them. This is going to affect everyone. Like if our government collapses because firing everyone and no one can function, like there are offices where most of the employees have been fired. They're trying to purge everyone. We will not be able to function. And no matter what you believe about like small government, big government, whatever, things should be evaluated. I agree. Things should be reformed, but there's a process for that. You don't just fire all these people. I did an extra tour in the Army in order to be stationed in the DC area to get myself a secure federal job. And so did my husband. We both grew up poor with like very little. Parents worked blue collar, not very secure jobs. When we were in the military, we were told like, get a government job. It's super secure. Doesn't pay as much as the private sector. Doesn't pay as much as contracting, but it's super secure. I did an extra 3.5 years. And then I went to school on the GI Bill to get my 4-year degree, get my bachelor's, and get a job with my previous agency. And that took a while. That took like over 6 months. And I was still like reservist, trying to keep up my everything. I just feel like the years that I worked hard for this job, like it was just a waste. Yeah, my husband and I, like once I got my first federal job 4 years ago, we were able to buy a house. We were doing home improvements over the years on it. We were able to take some international trips, which was so cool because we never could have afforded that as kids growing up in a rural area. And now we may lose our house. If my husband loses his job too, we'll lose the house within a few months. But I'm not afraid to work. I'm a millennial. I'm highly adaptable. I can go into retail if I need to. I hope to do something that's more at my skill level. Signed up for Rover. I'm trying to sell stuff around the house. By the way, if anybody's interested in a paddleboard, epoxy paddleboard, and you're in the DC area, I have it listed on Craigslist. I'll list that below. But if you're interested, I know a lot of people though are like, we're not buying anything right now. We're about to lose our jobs. So, but about a week before I lost my job, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I was still shocked when it happened, but saw the writing on the wall, and I was like going through selling stuff. I do anyway on Poshmark. Like I thrift a lot, which is another story, and I'll resell stuff on Poshmark and sometimes Facebook Marketplace. So I'm trying to just pay the mortgage. Every little bit that we get goes into savings to try to save our house. We do have some savings, but we don't know how much longer my husband will have a job for. Last weekend, I did network like crazy and, built a LinkedIn reached out to people, reached out to old contacts, old friends, and let them know, like, hey, I lost my job. Do you know of any openings in your, division? Well, no agencies are hiring. So, when people say, like, well, just get a job like everybody else, everybody else who lost a job, it's not a big deal. This area is built around federal jobs, and there's a hiring freeze right now. And there's 200,000 plus people out of work. There are not many jobs available. And I think a lot of that is Russian bots copying and pasting, because they all say the same thing. You feel entitled. I see it under like all sorts of social media in the comment section. Like, oh, you feel entitled, just get another job, blah, 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 blah. We don't work retail. And even in the private sector, it's hard to get a job right now. But because I was in one of the first waves of firings, I was able to connect with an old coworker who did have a position available. So I did an interview on Wednesday. As I got my termination letter in the email, like my email, I heard it in the distance pinging on my work laptop. So that was great. And he was like, yeah, we can bring you on board. Let me just, send everything over. So it's pretty certain. And then I had a second interview yesterday, and they have to do a background check on me and everything, which, should come back fine. So that's good news. It is definitely a pay cut, but I'll take it right now. Whatever we can do to pay the bills, I'm determined that I will be able to. I can go back to living on very little. I did it in the Army. I can do it again. And I think a lot of people around here are going to be in that boat soon. I also used to work as a nanny, so I could go back to doing that. There's a lot of people that are doing return to work, so they have to find childcare. I also have done events with my Jurassic Park Jeep. You may have seen my other channel. I'll link it down below. But I've done a few birthday parties. I did a bachelor party, which was pretty fun. And just some other fun stuff in my Jurassic Jeep Club, do weddings and things like that. I'm going to try to get on those events and just, make some money here and there. I'm also kind of excited about having more time to work on my YouTube channel. I've had it for over 5 years. It's not monetized, and that was never really a goal. I just was having fun making videos, but it would be nice if it was monetized now so I could, put that towards a mortgage. So I'm finishing up a backlog of editing old videos and everything and throwing them on my channel, but also trying to do some more surfing and wild swimming, backcountry camping, etc. It has been in the 20s and early 30s here, so it's a little bit too cold to go surfing. It's just, the wind chill is just brutal, so I'm not going to go for at least a couple weeks. But you can watch out for those videos in my channel if you're into that. On a positive note, along with having more time to make YouTube videos, I always was kind of like, especially at my old job, which got to be kind of miserable towards the end because of our management, our direct manager. I was like, man, I wish I could just like quit this job and do YouTube full time and just like do road trips and go surfing and everything, and or go backpacking and make a living off of that. But I was like, oh, that'd be so irresponsible to quit my job that pays well and, provides us health insurance and stuff like that. But now that choice has been made for me, and I'm not going to lie, over last weekend, I was kind of like, you know what? I'm going to make do with what I have. And I'm kind of excited to be outside in the sunshine, because I was working in a windowless office, and for a while in the winter, like, it was just too cold and windy to go outside for more than like a couple minutes, even just bundled up. It was really brutal. So I wasn't getting a lot of vitamin D. Like, you go to work, it's dark, you come home, it's dark, that kind of thing. It was just so nice to be out in the sunshine past few days and everything. I did a trash cleanup yesterday around my neighborhood because I'm like, I got to do something productive. I have been applying to jobs as well, and interviewing. I mean, there is one positive from that, and that's being outside, which I love, which this channel is based around. Thank you for watching. If you're a fired Fed, we're in this all together. Again, I will post information and resources in the description of this video, and hold the line.